All right. How's everybody doing today? Good, I hope. What you're seeing here is not everything you're about to see. I got to sand this top out, and I thought, let me talk about sanders with you guys. This is my personal experience with sanding, okay? And I've been doing this for a long, long time, close to 40 years. I've been building furniture most of that time. I mean, when I got out of the service, I started working with this company as a gopher, but I quickly worked up to being a carpenter, framer. We built houses. And within the first couple months, the owner's son took me under his wing and had me doing furniture grade stuff. We had a boat building at the marina that these guys owned. So from the jump, excuse me, I was already doing that. I was doing a lot of laminates at the time. But I've used every kind of sander that's been out there in the last 40 years. And for a long time, I used your standard random orbit sanders. And name the company, I probably owned a random orbit sander. I'll show you what that looks like. This is a Festool, which is a much higher end tool, and I highly recommend these. They're pretty good. So, random orbit sander. Random orbit, right? So this thing spins, but it also works on an elliptical sort of asymmetric sort of pattern. And I thought that this was pretty good for years. When I bought this, I bought into Festool, and I bought a lot of Festool machines, which I still have. When you use this, you want to use it with what they call a dust extractor. So this is my old, it's a CT22E. They don't make this anymore. I think they still make bags for it. And from time to time, I've had to repair this. I've had to repair all these tools at one time or another. I quickly wanted to show you this. This is called the Rotex, the RO150 FEQ Plus. And this thing, it's a much bigger disc. It's amazing. It's a 6-inch disc. And again, combined with a dust extractor, I can sand with no dust mask on. It gets like 99% of all the dust out of the air. And I just put my headphones on. I put my iPod right in here, hook that up, and I just jam out the tunes. This thing will remove, it's very heavy, this will remove a tremendous amount of material in a very short period of time. But if you're doing finesse stuff like furniture, if you need this, you screwed up, man. You screwed up, because before you ever even get to sanding, what you should be doing is milling all of your material so that when you glue it together, it's already good. You shouldn't need to do a whole bunch of sanding. Now, not everybody who's building furniture, there's different levels of it, man. It's not all the same. But not everybody who's building furniture has a nice wide joiner and a decent planer. And even if they do, not everybody that has those machines actually knows how to properly mill lumber. A lot of people don't understand the properties of different types of species of wood. Hardwood versus softwood is a thing, but also your grain orientation. There's a lot to deal with there. And I talk about this a lot on this channel. I've done multiple videos on milling lumber for heirloom quality furniture. You wouldn't believe what I went through this morning just now to find this, because I stashed this away a long time ago because I stopped using it. I haven't used either one of these in years, actually. I wouldn't sell this because there's going to be one day where I'm doing some other project and I'm going to need it. That's, Now, many, many years ago, I worked with a guy doing furniture, and he swore by sheet sanders. That was his thing. Those are the square ones. And I used his machines on a project out here in LA, and he was right. I discovered that sheet sanders, when it comes to furniture grade stuff, in my opinion, leaves a better finish than either one of these. Even better than this one. These random orbits, the way that they spin, they just leave a crap ton of swirls in your material. Now, obviously, you're supposed to start with whatever grade you think you need to do to get the base flat, and then progressively get to a finer grade. Each time, theoretically, you're erasing the swirl marks. And then in the end, you should be going with a block in the direction of the grain, right? And on grits, let me just throw this at you. Many years ago, I was doing a project and I had a spray. As a matter of fact, I bought an HVLP sprayer, a high-end one. I've only used 2 times, 3 times maybe. Never used it again. It was not a cheap machine. And I was dealing with Dunn Edwards, I believe, and they had a product there, and the people that sell the product came to my shop and talked to me about it, running it through the sprayer, and they told me that the finest grit I should be using is 150. Now most people are going to 220 or finer before they ever apply a finish. And the problem with that is if you're going with a super fine grit of sandpaper before you apply finish, sometimes you're making that finish so tight that it's not going to absorb the finish. So if you get to 150, there's still enough bite in the material for the finish to stick to. That happened to be a water-based finish. So something to be aware of there. Now, I stopped using these and I bought a Milwaukee sheet sander, square sheet sander. This was not a cheap Milwaukee version. It was one of their higher, I don't know what the line of Milwaukee is, but this machine was mostly all metal. And I used that for years, but I broke it. You know, a couple times I had to buy replacement parts and rebuild it. And again, there are videos on that, old videos of me doing that, or at least pictures out there. Certainly in my Mike Z Design Facebook page. I wouldn't be able to tell you where, but on certain pieces of furniture when I was making it, in the picture folders, if a machine went down, I included pictures of me working on that machine to fix it again. So, after all of this, a couple of years ago I was back in New Jersey, and I was doing a job for a guy up in upstate New York, an architect, and I needed a sander, and I didn't want to use these because the finish was important to me, so I bought this. Another Festool product. Here's what's crazy about the Rotex and the, what is that one? The ES125 EQ. Up here, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, at least 11 boxes, not including what's in those boxes, of sandpaper for those 2 machines that I may never use again. It's insane. I bought this, and I'm very happy with this. I cut this out here to fit. I've got 120, 150, and 180 grit, which is about all you need to use with this sander. After you get to 180, you should be working with by hand after that. Stop using the machine. And this machine right here, it's kind of a rectangle. The thing about this is it's proprietary. You have to use Festool sandpaper to work with this. This machine, it's tiny, it's great, it's an amazing finish job. If you felt the weight of this, you feel the quality. Everybody knows Festool's pretty much top of the line. Great stuff. I can't actually complain about this. It's been wonderful. And what I do is I've got different spots in here. Here's one here where I run the hose for the dust extractor over the top. I run the cord. I use some Velcro tape to tape the cord to the hose so they're one piece. And I stand here with those hoses hanging and I work the material with my headphones on, and it's wonderful. It turns a day that used to be brutal into kind of fun. Then I was going to do a project. I don't remember what project it was, but I knew that I'm getting tired of the cords, you know. And I bought, a couple of years ago, I started buying the Makita cordless tools, the 18-volt stuff. And it was been so impressive that I started taking a gamble with other Makita 18-volt tools that I was weary about trying. And what happened was I stumbled upon this sander. I'll put a battery in it for you so you know what that looks like. Now this will work on any Makita battery, but obviously the 5 amp 18-volt batteries are probably the best. They last the longest. And there you have it. There's other parts to this. There's a little thing here I could snap on here to hold it with 2 hands. There's a rubber bumper on this in case you're doing fit. Oh, no. This is for your hand. So the vibration on your hand if you want to hold it here. There's a dust bag, which I had to use recently because the Makita dust extractor that I have took a crap on me. We'll get to that in a minute. So what happened was that I just, as anybody would, I just fell in love with using cordless tools. The beauty of this one is you just rip normal sandpaper down. You can get 3 pieces of sandpaper out of 1. It's not proprietary. You don't have to buy special sandpaper. You buy normal sheets of sandpaper, you put them on here, boom, you push this down, makes the holes so that the dust extractor can suck the dust out. It's amazing. This is what I've come to now, and this is now my go-to. And this thing, believe it or not, with this battery, it can last all day of sanding. It is amazing. I just can't say enough about it. So I just wanted to talk about all this. What have I learned? I've learned that, in my opinion, sheet sanders are better than round random orbit sanders because these produce a better finish in my products. Being a sheet sander, I can get tight up to the edge. I can get in the corners. The round ones, you can't do that. The round ones tend to be more aggressive. They'll remove a lot of material quicker, probably, especially that Rotex. But these are going to produce a superior finish, and you don't ever need to buy corded tools anymore if you're willing to step it up and go this way. My advice on cordless tools is just pick a company. Eventually, you know, your tools do kind of wear out after a while. We have a lot. This is all brushless now, so you don't have brushes to wear out, but you break things and whatnot. But if you pick, it doesn't have to be Makita. But I select the Makita because they have the largest selection of tools. So a weed whacker will work with this battery. Their chainsaw will work with these batteries. So that's why I chose it. And I've always liked Makita, and they've been hit or miss over the years at different times. But now with the technology that they have, I think this is one of the best tools you can buy, best companies. But I just wanted to let you guys know. This is what I'm using, and this is what I like. Now, real quick on this, because I did a short on it, and people were curious. This dust extractor took a crap on me. I'm not an electrician. I probably have a tester somewhere, but I don't really understand the way that it works, and I wouldn't know all the right ways to attach it. But I did get a new switch for it, and it did not do the trick. So I'm totally bummed now. There's not much I can do with this. Makita does have a warranty program, and I've had this for just about a year or so. It probably works under that, but I guess I'll have to look into it, because it's a total friggin' bummer. It's a useless piece of garbage to me at this point. But before it crapped out on me, this hooked up to that worked perfect. I can hook this up to the saw. It worked great. This is an amazing, amazing piece of kit, as long as it doesn't break on you. Now, let's just real quick talk about this top. So I glued up this top here, and my joiner planer, which is right here, I can pass material through just about 10 inches and a quarter, 10 and a quarter inches wide through that machine. That means even on the joiner, which is great, because if you have a board that's that wide, which is pretty wide, you can run it through the joiner and get one face of it, we call it face joining, perfectly flat. Then you get an edge to 90 degrees, then you run it on the bandsaw, and you resaw it so both sides are parallel, but one side's rough. You let it sit overnight. You come back the next day. You put pencil lines on the face join side. You run that through the machine again, because it's going to move overnight. Get that flat. Now you can run it through the planer and get it perfectly parallel and flat on both sides. That's my process, okay? Sometimes that process can take days if the material keeps moving. Of course, I'm buying kiln-dried hardwoods mostly at Bonhoff Lumber. That's who I use for this sort of thing. Now, the way I did this was I face joined all these parts separately, and I ran them on a table saw just to get them kind of close. And then I did a glue up, and I did 2 glue ups. One from here to here, one from here to here. And then I face joined those parts after they were glued up. Then I ran them through the planer. Then I edged them. Straight lined them, edged them again on the joiner, and then I glued 2 parts up. And when I glued the 2 parts up, I had maybe a 64th of an inch right here. It's not all the way across. I got it pretty good. So I wanted to explain that before you even sand, right? Because you don't want to use your sander to do your facing. You want to try to remove that wood try to make it even before you use your sander. So I love cabinet scrapers. This is a Veritas cabinet scraper holder. The scraper is separate. And you know, you have to use, I might have the tool here. It'd be pretty cool if I could show you this. Nope. I don't know where it is. I know it's in the shop here somewhere. But I have this tool. Ah, here it is. Well, it's your lucky day. So this jig here is something I put in the vise, and you take your cabinet scraper out, and there's a 45-degree bevel to one edge of it, and you get that real sharp, and then you want to burnish, or you know, you want to put like a little ridge on that, and that's what does all your scraping. And the first thing you do is you take this out, and the edge you hit with a file to make it flat. Then you put it in this jig and you run it along here to get it sharper. Then you take it out and you run it here along this steel pin, and that creates a burr. And that burr is what does your, what does the work. What this does is you can take this and this is designed really for veneers. It's a cabinet maker's thing from the old days, back when everything was veneered. Do you guys remember? I just did a video on the Biedermeier furniture. But what I like to do is use this, come across, and everywhere I feel with my fingers, where it's a little high, I just like to scrape this, and I'm going to make this top pretty stinking smooth. Now the issue with this is you're shaving the wood fibers. That makes this top very hard. It makes it harder for it to allow finish to penetrate and stick to the surface. So you have to sand it after you scrape it. It's a pretty crazy thing. So anyhow, I'll go over this. I'll find my little spots that are high, and then I'm going to come along with the sander, which is really my next thing to do with this particular item here. I forgot to mention in the video the other day when I did this, it's walnut, cherry, walnut, hard maple, walnut, white oak, walnut, cherry, walnut, mahogany, walnut. I did a little plug here, Dutchman patch of Purple Heart, and I guess I set my router a little bit too deep, so that patch is a little bit below the surface. I don't care. This is just going to be a work surface. Although I'm on the fence with this because I have a drawing for a design for my house in Arizona. When you go in the kitchen, there's a door that goes to the garage, and between that door and the corner of the kitchen, there's a pretty good length of wall there. And the outside wall, there's a door to go out the back. And that's where the kitchen table is now. There's a round table. You got to walk around that round table, and it eats up a lot of room in the space. What I've been wanting to do is make a table that's about 40 inches wide and 5 feet long that I can push up against the wall. It's easier to get around. And along the wall, I was going to build a bench seat attached to the wall. Okay? Probably with some storage in it. That's always hidden by the table. The table would be a trestle-based table. So I could have a couple chairs. I could have 4 chairs. 2 on this side and 2 end ones if I want. And I was thinking, man, if I did another one of these glue-ups, I can make this exactly the width I needed. I could use this as my kitchen table in Arizona. But for now, I'm just going to go ahead and knock these edges down, sand it, and seal it with some polyurethane. And I plan on doing that as soon as I get off of this. So I'm going to sand this next. I'm going to use probably going to use the Makita. It's a big one. It'll do what I need it to do. Once I get this sanded and it feels really good, my next step on this is to take a block like this and wrap it with 150, and then I'll probably do 180, and maybe I'll grab a piece here. I probably have a scrap piece here. It's not perfect. Yeah, there you go, 180. This has sandpaper on it already. Right? I make these blocks. And I do kooky shapes on them because I find that they work for me when I'm doing particular things. But it won't slip around on the sandpaper. So I'll wrap this sheet of paper here, and I'll go in the direction of the grain. And this is my sanding process after I've used the machine. All right? Then I'm going to get all this dust off. I'm going to vacuum it. I'm going to tack it. I'm going to probably hit it with a wet rag, raise the grain, knock it down again, and then I'm ready to apply finish. And when I apply my finish, all it is I just take a piece of cotton t-shirt and I'm so pro turning my back on you. Oh, we have to talk about this too. I'm using the wipe-on polyurethane. I showed it to you the other day. I had a can of it out here. I put it outside to warm up. I can get it. Don't go anywhere. I'll just grab this for you. I know I got a box of it here. As I said, I've got to get this stuff out of state. They don't sell it in California anymore. This is not an airborne thing. It doesn't... California's nervous about aerosols and things evaporating up into the air. But this is a wipe-on polyurethane. It doesn't go into the air. You wipe it on, and within minutes, it's already getting tacky. And you can put a second coat on within 3 to 4 hours, depending on the temperature of the day. This is the oil-based version. This is my favorite stuff because it penetrates, then it builds upon itself, and this gives you way more depth in the grain. Way more than a water-based. Doesn't really penetrate. Water-based pretty much, it bites, and then it settles, and it just stays on the top of the surface of the wood. It's plenty durable and all that. I just prefer the look of this. So anyhow, cotton cloth, I pour it on. I do all these different directions, and then I take the rag and I go in the direction of the grain right across the top, and I let it sit. You might see little bubbles. You could blow on them to blow them out, but they usually just kind of pop off on their own, and it's a nice finish. And as I said before, I will do a minimum of 2 coats before sanding, usually 3. I mentioned it in the last video where I talk about this. The directions tell you to put a coat on and then sand it. The reason is, usually when you put moisture on your top, it's going to raise the grain. So you kind of have to sand it. If you didn't sand it, when you go to put another coat down, that bite that's there is going to grab the rag. It's going to make it a hassle. But as I mentioned before, I even mentioned it earlier already, if you wet this top down first, let the grain raise, that water is going to evaporate pretty fast. It's not like you're waiting a day for that to happen. I can wet this down, and 20 minutes later, I could be sanding this. I'm not squirting it down with a hose. I'm taking a damp rag, squeezing it out, and applying water on this. It will raise the grain. Great. You sand this, wet it, raise the grain, sand it again, remove all the dust. Now you're ready to apply finish. And when you apply your first coat of finish, you're not going to get the grain raise. Or you shouldn't. If you do, it'll be very minimal. And again, don't sand it after you apply the first coat of finish. Let that dry enough, put your second coat on. All right, and if you want, put a third coat on. Okay, then you can sand it. Now, when I'm sanding for finish, I don't have any right here that I can reach. I'm usually using like a 400 or a 600 grit sandpaper that I wrap around this block, and I go right over the finish in the direction lightly. I make sure I do it enough, get all that dust off. I apply my final coat. So it's a faster, you're doing an extra step of raising the grain, but during those steps, those are faster steps. Once you apply the finish, couple coats of finish, and then you sand it, remove the dust, and do your final, you're done. All right? 4 coats is usually enough. 5 coats is nicer. Between the last 2 coats, it's okay to sand that. Sometimes it's a funny thing with the finish. You kind of learn it with that wipe-on stuff. You want to get enough on to where you go to all directions with the rag to make sure you're filling all the voids and little pores of the wood. Then you go over it in the direction of the grain. And then make sure you can get enough light where you can look at it at an angle to see if you missed anywhere, because you might have to drag that rag across a couple times, but you could miss something. So if you do, then you might have to put a 4th or a 5th coat. You'll have to do a 4th, but you might have to do a 5th, sometimes more. You have to be careful, because if you start building up too much of a finish with that polyurethane, it could start looking plasticky. I still want you to kind of feel the wood a little bit. That's just me. Depends on what the intended purpose of the piece is going to be. This is a handheld random orbit spindle sander. This was it's Porter cable, and I thought I had this in Arizona, but I just found it in this back corner because I put it away because I don't use this very often. Rockler, you guys heard of Rockler Woodworking? They made a router table, They came with these aluminum inserts, and this was one of them that worked with this tool. Don't think this exists anymore. There's even a way to put a dust collector on this right here if you wanted to. And so that you could put this in a table, so it's sitting here, and now it's a stationary random orbit spindle sander. But this is also really good where I have this corner laid out to draw a curve. I drew a curve on this. So if I took this, I could go along that curve, and now this edge, this is the front edge, that's the back edge. Now this edge is going to be perfectly at 90 degrees. The way I prefer to do that is the old school way with a belt sander. And I like to just get up here and lay it on the edge and run it over to this edge. And I can feel that that's 90 degrees. And I'll check it with the square as I'm going to get that right. That's how I always taught myself how to use it. This works great, but because it's round, this little, you know, it might not, you really got to pay attention to what you're doing and really get to the line. So if you were to use this and you didn't have a belt sander, then you'd want to go with this on that curve to get that to be smoother, because this isn't going to give you like a nice flat line around, right? Because this edge is rounded. And that all depends on what the diameter of these sleeves are. I got the whole kit. I got all the fatter ones and the skinnier ones and all that. This is a great machine to have, even if you only use it a couple times a year. Because when you need it, huge time saver. And it's aggressive. You could really, matter of fact, I don't, it's not here. But the World War II knife, what says USMC, the Bolo, the medical corps knife, when I shaped that whole handle and everything with the steel, I did it with this. I put this in the table, and I did all that shaping with this machine. And that handle, I made it super ergonomic. This made quick, easy work. It sanded the steel and the wood. So this is an amazing thing to have. But you can see, almost 40 years of doing this, you accumulate all these tools. The tools are free. When you really break it down, the tools are free. If you don't have a sander, and a sander costs a few $100s, and somebody's willing to pay you to do a job, and you know that tool is going to expedite your time. It's going to make you get the job done faster. First of all, you should not be charging anybody by the hour. You're supposed to be charging by the job. That's better for you and the client. Because the client says, okay, this is how much this is going to cost. Now, however you came up with that number, maybe you worked it out by the hour, you know, like, oh, I'm going to do this many days, I'm going to put this many hours in a day. Whatever your process is for coming up with a number, that's up to you. But you've got a number, you give them the number. Personally, I know a lot of people don't like this, but my thing is to do 2/3 up front, because with 2/3 up front, I got enough money, I get all my material, and I'm covered basically for my time. The final third is my gravy, and I've never really had a problem, but I do it that way just in case, because from time to time, you might want to walk away from a job, or there could be some misunderstanding. Maybe it's your fault, maybe it's their fault, doesn't matter. If you have to walk away from a project, at least you know you didn't really lose. That's just my way of thinking. It works for me. But the point is, if you don't have a machine, add the machine to the cost of the job. A lot of people listening to this right now are going to be like, that's crazy. That's how you do it. That's how I always did it. You know, I still have it. It's in Arizona now. My first hammer drill, I had to do a job here in West Hollywood for a wealthy guy, and he had this condo there. Jimmy Doolittle was his name, not the pilot from World War II. He was a theatrical angel. He was a guy that invested in theater production. And I had designed and built a bunch of theater sets. And I did one for this woman, Jean Van Tile. I should look her up. I don't know if she's around anymore. She was an older woman at the time. Sweet lady. I did a bunch of custom work for her at her house in Pasadena back in the 90s. And anyhow, Jimmy wanted to meet me. He was impressed with my ability with the theater sets I was designing and building. So I went to his office. He had an office and he had an apartment in this building. It's over there it's on Holloway, right up the street from Barney's Beanery. And the guy just really liked me. He just really liked me. He wanted me around downstairs with his office that he had. I had to build a kind of like a fence with trellis work, but I had to set anchors in the concrete of the building to put 4x4 posts on. I needed a hammer drill, man. And it was $250 at that time for that drill. And I added it to the cost of the project. So the drill paid for itself, and I've been able to use that drill on every other job ever since. Now, I've got cordless Makita. I'm never using that Milwaukee ever again. And a funny little thing, I was talking to Dave, my buddy Dave. You guys have met him on the channel before. Because he was saying how he was going to try to list some tools for sale. And I've done it as well. It's kind of hard to sell corded tools now. People are just not interested in buying them because the cordless stuff works so well. So, something else to think about. And again, I brought pretty much a full kit already to Arizona of all my extra tools that are all corded that I wasn't using anymore. They were just there, so I didn't have to bring this stuff there. But I'm going to be moving there. So I'm going to have all these extra tools. Maybe I'll hook my nephew up or something. But my point is, back to the sanding, that's really what this video is about. Again, regular round random orbit sanders, you know, for rough work, fine. You're going to paint something, fine. But if you're going to be clear coating something and you want it to be its best, you want the chance for the optimal finish, making your life easier, not having to erase all these little swirls with a block by hand after you've used the machine, consider switching over to sheet sanders, okay? And when you're considering switching over to sheet sanders, again, just remember to consider, it doesn't have to be this Makita, it doesn't have to be cordless. But again, this machine uses regular sandpaper. 8x11, I guess they are. And you rip that up and you apply this. It's great. This Festool, again, just to remind you, this uses a proprietary sandpaper. You have to buy the Festool sandpaper. Now, I guess there is not a tool in here that perforates this like this one has. All right. Again, you put regular sandpaper on this, you tap it, you perforate it, now it's ready. This one, you've got to buy boxes of sandpaper, $48 for this one box of sandpaper. Now these sheets do last quite a while, but that's a lot of money for sandpaper. That's $120 in sandpaper. Let's see if they're all the same, because the grits might be different prices. Oh, 48. It's going to be the same. Yep, 48 bucks for all of them. Now here's the thing. All the sandpaper I bought maybe 4 years ago, these might be $60 a piece now. I don't know. I haven't been buying them. This is going to last me quite some time because I don't use this machine as much anymore because I got this one. And yes, I can hook up my Makita to the hose from my Festool dust extractor. I just have these adapters for that. Sometimes you have to make your own thing. At any rate, I hope this is helpful. Every video I do, my intention is always to be helpful. And when it comes to you, listen, this is your hard-earned money. If you're a woodworker and you're doing it more like a hobby thing or just making your own stuff, you're spending your own money on these tools. And I'm just trying to help you to save money, okay? If you want to turn out, again, a better quality product, in my opinion, it's just my opinion. You can argue with me all you want in the comments. This is my experience. Your experience may be different, okay? I'm just telling you, I believe sheet sanders are superior to round random orbit sanders. This is still a random orbit function on the sheet sander, but there's just something about the way that that moves. It doesn't leave the deep swirl marks that all these other machines use. I got a scrape right here. It's another thing, by the way. Don't trust your eyeballs. Trust your fingertips. Run your hands over it. You're going to feel more than you can see. One of the things I like to do is I can feel this right here. Okay, right here I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. Now, with my scraper, I'm going to erase those pencil lines just like you see me do on the jointer when I do that. I'll use the scraper. When those pencil lines are gone, I know that I've taken that little bit of a ridge out of there. Once the ridge is out, then I go to the sander. All right? I hope this helps. I'm not going to do a tutorial when I'm doing the finish. I highly doubt it. It's the most boring thing in the world, and I don't see how that's helping you. If you can't understand what I'm saying, and enough to where you could do it without watching me do it, you probably shouldn't be doing it. I'm kind of messing with you there. A little tough love for you. But I'm just saying. That's it. If you have anything to say, do it in the comments. Let me know what you think. I hope this wasn't too long. I didn't look at the watch. But I got to get to this, and I got to get to some other stuff. And then I got to put this whole freaking shop back together. Have a great day. It's December. Christmas is coming. So I hope you guys are in the Christmas spirit. It's kind of hard. I will admit I get a little bit bummed out this time of year. Right around Thanksgiving, I'm like, and it's not because I'm alone. I'm fine with it. I'm happy to see everybody else doing their thing and having a good time. But it's just a reminder that I'm not doing anything else with my life other than working and relaxing. And now I got you guys. So thanks for being here. Come back often. Tell your pals. Be kind to one another. And, you know, hopefully I'll catch you in the next one.